A boss be rising, baby TV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback.
There are some voices you just assume will always be there. Dolly Parton was one of them. For more than 60 years, she gave us songs to sing, stories to remember, reasons to laugh, and more than a few reasons to cry. This week, that voice went silent. But tonight, we're turning the jukebox up because we're not spending this hour talking about how Dolly died. We're spending it remembering how beautifully that Dolly lived.
Every life has a soundtrack, and every song has a story. Turn up the memories and take the journey. This is Jukebox Journey.
Now, some of you may have been expecting tea with B tonight, but we had Weeby jamming last night, and I wasn't about to step on anybody's toes with Dolly because tonight we're going to talk about Dolly. First, I want to say, rest in peace, Dolly. You will be forever missed. So, welcome to the Jukebox Journey. Normally, this is where I would, pardon me, bring you a letter from somebody whose story gives us our reason to take tonight's journey, but not tonight. Because if those letters were real, I honestly don't think I could choose just one. How do you choose between the woman who remembers her mama singing Coat of Many Colors, the couple whose song was Islands in the Stream, somebody who grew up watching Dolly and Porter with their grandparents, like me, or the person who didn't realize until years later that Whitney Houston's song they loved was actually written and performed first by Dolly Parton? So this week we lost Dolly, and I think millions of us could write our own letter about where she fits somewhere in our lives. So tonight, instead of reading one person's Dolly story, we're going to make room for as many as I can possibly manage. Now, we're going back through the biggest hits, the songs she wrote, the stories behind the music, and finally, the woman underneath all those rhinestones. Because Dolly Parton didn't just leave us a catalog of songs, she left us more than 60 years of memories attached to them. So I do have a little, uh, yeah, few graphics to go with it. So her biggest hits. The first one I'm going to go with is Jolene, of course, the song that refused to believe in one generation or belong to one generation for that matter. Thank you. Can you hear me now? I think my stuff is breaking. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you. So sorry. I think this one is dead, and maybe I need to get my other microphone. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so very much. I'm going to pull this other one out and see if I can't use it instead because it just shut off on me. All right. Let's see. Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, we're going to try this a little bit better. Maybe we can do it right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for that. Okay, so I'm going to back up just a tad here because I think I probably should. So, Dolly has told the wonderful story that because she had never made a movie before, she memorized basically the entire screenplay instead of just her own lines. Then she wrote the movie's theme song and accidentally found part of its rhythm on the ends of her own fingers. She realized that rubbing her acrylic fingernails together, it sounded like a typewriter key. And that click, it became part of the song's unmistakable opening. 9-5 was had reached number 1 on both the country chart and the Billboard Hot 100, won Grammys and earned an Academy Award nomination. More importantly, people recognized themselves in the whole thing. The terrible boss, the working all day while somebody else gets the credit, waiting for promotion that never comes, of course, and wondering why you're barely getting by while making somebody else richer, right? Dolly walked into Hollywood as the newcomer and came out with a hit movie, a massive crossover record, and another piece of music that would outlive the era that created it. So the next song on my list is Islands in the Stream. When Dolly and Kenny became one of music's favorite couples who weren't actually a couple, Islands in the Stream arrived in 1983 and gave Dolly one of the defining musical partnerships of her career with Kenny Rogers. I mean, sure, there was Porter Wagner first, but that's sure she got her start with him. But Kenny Rogers, I think my personal opinion is they actually were probably made each other, right? The song itself, it came from an unexpected place. Barry, Robin, and Maurice Gibb, the Bee Gees. Kenny had been working on the song with Barry Gibb, but the record wasn't quite clicking. Dolly was brought in, and suddenly it clicked. Their voices fit, their personalities fit, and audiences absolutely loved them together. The record went all the way to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Their chemistry was convincing enough that people spent decades asking whether Dolly and Kenny had ever been romantically involved. I mean, I thought about it, didn't you? So both of them obviously denied it, right? What they did have was a friendship that lasted for decades and a musical chemistry strong enough to make millions of listeners believe every single word they sang to each other. So Kenny died in 2020. Big heartbreak there. And now Dolly is gone too. And one of the happiest duets in the jukebox suddenly carries a little more weight. Two voices that sounded so natural together are now part of memories they left us. And I think those are pretty good memories. So the next song, Here You Come Again, the record that proved country couldn't keep Dolly to itself. By the late 1970s, Dolly wanted a broader audience, and Here You Come Again became the breakthrough that showed she could cross into mainstream pop without abandoning the people who already loved her. I mean, it didn't even sound like a pop song, but it was. It was classified as a pop song. So, unlike many of the songs most closely associated with Dolly, she didn't write this one. Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil did. That matters because Dolly's identity had already so strongly tied to her own songwriting. Yet she knew when somebody else had handed her exactly the right song, she was going to take it. Released in 1977, it became her first million selling single. Can you believe that? Here you come again. And there she went, right? Spent weeks at number one on the country chart and crossed into the pop top 10. Dolly was beginning a balancing act she would perform for the rest of her career, becoming bigger than country music without acting as though country music was something she had outgrown. She could walk into pop, movies, television, and eventually rock music. But somehow she always sounded like she still knew exactly which mountain she came down from. I think we all do. It's them Rocky Top. And that's where Dolly starts getting uh, even more interesting for me, anyway. Because for all the records that she sold and all the songs we associate with that unmistakable voice, Dolly Parton wasn't simply standing in a microphone singing somebody else's material long before the movies. Dollywood, the rhinestones, my favorite part, and worldwide fame. She was a songwriter, and one particular song would connect Porter Wagner, Elvis Presley, and Whitney Houston across almost 20 years while teaching one of the best lessons in the music business about knowing the value of what belongs to you. Songs that she wrote. Now, there will not be enough time for me to name all the songs that she wrote. Obviously, this is only a half an hour show, but I Will Always Love You, a goodbye to Porter Wagner that became a song for the world. Dolly wrote I Will Always Love You when she was preparing to leave Porter Wagner's television show and strike out on her own. Porter had helped introduce her to a national audience, but their professional relationship had become difficult as Dolly wanted more independence. Of course, she did. When arguing and explaining didn't work, Dolly did what Dolly knew how to do. She wrote a song. She has said she brought it to Porter and just sang it for him, and he cried. The remarkable thing is that lyrics aren't angry. This wasn't a revenge song about escaping somebody who had held her for back forever. It was gratitude and goodbye, living in the same place. I appreciate what you gave me. I care about you, and I still have to leave, but I'll always love you. Dolly's original recording reached number one on the country chart in 1974. I was 2 years old. She recorded it again for the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas and took it to number one again in 1982. Then the song story became unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable, if you ask me, because wow, right? Sorry, I got to get the rest of my stuff up here because, of course, the computer is not acting correctly today. So, the day that Dolly told Elvis no, okay, and cried all night about it, it's true. Elvis Presley wanted to record I Will Always Love You. And for a young songwriter who had grown up listening to Elvis, that was enormous. Dolly has said she was thrilled until Colonel Tom Parker's people told her that Elvis generally required a share of the publishing rights. When he recorded someone else's song, no, no. Dolly owned her publishing and refused to give it up. She later said she cried all night because she desperately wanted to hear Elvis sing her song, but she couldn't surrender the ownership. Smart move, lady. It may be one of the most important business decisions of her entire lifetime. Dolly understood that a song could keep earning long after the record that introduced it disappeared from the charts. She was willing to lose an Elvis Presley recording rather than give away part of something she had created. Can't blame her for that. Years later, that decision became worth more than even Dolly could have imagined. Seriously. So, um, pardon me. Then Whitney Houston called, and the song became something else entirely, right? In 1992, Whitney Houston recorded I Will Always Love You for the Bodyguard, and Dolly's Quiet Country Goodbye became one of the biggest pop recordings in history. Whitney's version spent 14 weeks at number one on Billboard Hot 100 and introduced Dolly's songwriting to millions of people who may never have heard the original. So Dolly still owned the song. Every enormous success attached to Whitney's recording also reinforced why Dolly's decision years earlier to protect her publishing mattered. Sorry, Elvis. Whitney got it. And that's okay because Whitney did it the right way, right? But what, pardon me, what I love about the story is that Dolly never acted threatened by Whitney taking the song. Somewhere Dolly's own recording never had, she celebrated it. Whitney didn't erase Dolly's version. She demonstrated just how strong the song underneath it really was. Strip away the arrangement, the genre, and even the singer, and those words still worked. That's the test of a songwriter. And she passed it. So Dolly didn't just write the hits, she wrote her life. Dolly said she began making up songs when she was a little girl, before she could even properly write them down. And songwriting remained the center of how she understood herself throughout her career. My Tennessee mountain home came from where she grew up. Coat of Many Colors came from childhood. I Will Always Love You came from leaving Porter. Jolene took a real flash of jealousy and turned it into a song recognized around the world. She wrote about family, faith, poverty, heartbreak, ambition, and the complicated lives of women without needing those stories to sound glamorous. That is part of why her catalog feels so personal. Dolly didn't wait until life became tidy enough to write about it. The uncomfortable parts were often where she found the song. To me, that's pretty amazing. She was amazing. The songwriter underneath the celebrity. It became easy over the years to let the enormous Dolly Parton personality overshadow the craft underneath it. The wigs got attention, the clothes got attention, the jokes got attention. I mean, she told Kenny after all that time on his farewell, she asked him if he wanted to hold him. We know what she was talking about, y'all. That's the kind of life she had in her, even at that age. Look, Dolly encouraged all of that because she understood entertainment. But underneath the character was somebody who took songwriting and ownership seriously. She built a publishing catalog, protected her copyrights, and understood that fame could disappear while ownership remained. That makes the Elvis story bigger than a fun piece of trivia. A young woman from rural Tennessee sat across from one of the most powerful machines in entertainment, was offered the kind of opportunity artists dream about, and still understood that having Elvis sing her song wasn't worth no longer fully owning the song. Dolly could play the country girl all day long. That did not mean she didn't know exactly what she was doing, y'all. She once said that blonde jokes don't bother her because she's not dumb and she's not blonde, right? All right, y'all. Tonight was never really about saying goodbye to Dolly Parton. I don't think you can wrap up a life like hers in a half an hour. And I certainly don't think you can fit it neatly into the end of a jukebox journey because Dolly left pieces of herself everywhere. They're in songs our parents played, the movies we still stop and watch when we find them, or like me, have them on Fandango. The words we somehow know by heart, the books arriving in the hands of children, and the mountains of Tennessee she never stopped calling home. She spent her life making sure we laughed with her, sang with her, occasionally cried with her, and somehow she managed to become a legend without ever making us feel like she was too big to sit down beside us. This week we lost the woman, but we didn't lose Dolly. She's still in Jolene begging another woman not to take her man. She's still clicking those fingernails to 9 to 5. Hi, Paul. Good to see you. Hi, Kenneth. You too. Thanks for being here, y'all. Look, she's still wearing that coat of many colors like it was worth $1 million. I'm willing to bet she'll be buried with it. She's still standing beside Kenny on an island in the stream. And somewhere, Whitney is still holding that final note on a song Dolly was brave enough to write and smart enough to keep. So I don't think we end tonight with goodbye. I think we do what people have done with Dolly Parton for more than 60 years. We turn her up. Amen, Kenneth. Amen. That is true. Probably one of the most popular in my heart for sure. But definitely, she was an entertainer. True to heart entertainer who will never be replaced nor never be forgotten anytime soon. Amen. I'm going to pop these up here before I walk out of here because these are true. These are good. This one's a hard one for me. This is my connection with my granny and my mama, you know. Ah, aren't you adorable? I'm so glad there's this button. Anyway, we sing along, we turn her up, we tell the stories, and every once in a while, when one of those songs catches us when we aren't expecting it, we remember the woman behind it and smile. Thank you for the music, Dolly, the laughter, the stories, and all the rhinestones. Dolly, the jukebox is going to keep playing. I promise. Go sing one for my mama, please. All right, y'all. Before I start crying on this one, I'm going to have to say, y'all go check out Tuber Chat because those are my guys. Those are my friends. Word up. Love y'all. Peace. Buzz you later.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, says, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why. If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description.
Boss be rising, baby TV